7:30, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Roll call, William Johnston.
Here.
Lynn Colligan.
Here.
Lisa Kreckler.
Here.
Bill DiOrio is here. Thomas Graffinino is excused. Also present, we have Stephen Kiley, Town Attorney. First order of business is to review and approve the January 18th, 2023 minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
It's not here, so.
Okay.
Bill Control second.
Should we go second here?
Yes.
Okay. All in favor?
Sorry.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we have two resolutions. The first is for 78 North Cartwright Road. Christina?
Application by Jane Azia and Rob Quaintance for variance at 78 North Cartwright Road, Shelter Island, New York, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 700-A-3-16. The basis of the application are the request for variance from Town Code Section 133-7B5B2 as reflected in the revised building inspector's denial letter dated October 6, 2022. There's an application for a permit to demolish an existing one-story garage and construct 1.5-story accessory building with sleeping quarters and storage as shown on a Has Design Build LLC construction plans dated July 6, 2022. The applicant requests 114.8 feet area variance in connection with the proposed renovation. The Zoning Board of Appeals held a public hearing on this application on November 16, 2022. Based upon all testimonies, the Zoning Board finds the requested relief of 14.8 feet would create a detriment to the community. So the alternative relief of 9.8 feet is proposed. Now, therefore, Zoning Board of Appeals approves the alternative relief of 9.8 feet, side yard setback of 20.2 feet for the proposed accessory building with sleeping quarters, as reflected at the Has Design Build LLC construction plan dated July 6, 2022, and subject to the following condition. A new survey shall be submitted to the building department showing the proposed accessory building with sleeping quarters holding 20.2 feet setback from eastern lot line.
All right, we're gonna have a roll call vote. William Johnston?
Can somebody?
We got to make a motion
Okay,
first.
I have a motion.
I'll make a motion.
I have a second.
I'll second.
A motion to approve?
Yeah, motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve.
Okay,
I'll second.
okay. Roll call vote. William Johnston?
Yes.
Lynn Colligan?
Yes.
Lisa Kreckler?
Yes.
Bill DiOrio votes yes. This is the second resolution. It's 85 Shore Road. Christina?
Application by UCLOC for a variance at 85 New York, tax map number 700-13-1-18. Basis of the application of the request for a
Stop
variance.
shuffling papers.
Here, right, Pam?
Can come reviewed.
Yeah. Request for a variance from Town Code Section 133-6B5A and 133-6B5B2. It's reflected in the revised building inspector's denial letter dated October 28, 2022. Based on an application for a permit to demolish an existing one-story accessory building and construct a single-family dwelling. Accessory building with sleeping quarters, pool, patios, tennis court, and associated structures, as shown on the Campus Studios construction plans dated May 1st, 2021, and the Nathan Corwin third line surveyor survey dated September 15, 2022. The applicant requests two area variances in connection with the proposed construction. Town Code Section 133-6B5A requires that the dwellings hold at least 40 feet front yard setback, and here the proposed dwelling will only hold 35 feet. Thus, a 5-feet variance is required. Further, Town Code Section 133-6B5B2 requires that swimming pools and patios connected. They are to hold the 20 feet side yard setback, and here the proposed pool with patio will only hold 15 feet, so the 5-feet variance is required. The applicant verbally withdrew the request for variance for the proposed pool. The zoning board of appeals held a public hearings on this application December 14, 2022. Now zoning board of appeals approved the front yard setback relief for 5 feet for the portico of the proposed dwelling as reflected in the Campo Studios construction plans dated May 1st, 2021. And the Nathan F. Corwin III Land Surveyor dated September 15, 2022. Subject to the following condition. The portico shall remain open.
May I have a motion to approve the resolution?
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution.
I have a second?
Yes. Billy,
Okay,
William Johnson III.
okay. Roll call vote, William Johnson,
Yes.
Lynn Colligan.
Yes.
Lisa Preckler,
Yes.
and Phil DiOrio votes yes. Okay. Next order of business is a continuation of the hearing of 71B North Nostrum Parkway, be left open. And,
I have some correspondence.
okay, so please.
All right, so we received a letter from the chairman dated January 18, 2023, included revised plans and letter describing the revisions. A letter from Alexander Doman dated January 24th, 2023. He's objecting to expansion of the pool house, patio, and the pool, as no further expansion that should be allowed in general, and as it's intruding into the vegetative buffer. He's suggesting different location for the pool and eliminating pool house completely. Suggesting that the previous ZBA resolution allows no further expansion as per resolution 9/2015. Also, at the last hearing, we didn't enter into correspondence a letter of support from Douglas Knight dated December 5th, 2020.
Okay, Matt, do you want to talk about how you revised the plans here?
Yep, absolutely. Once again, Matt Sherman with Sherman Engineering and Consulting. I'm here on behalf of the owners, Blair and John Bullock. Can I share my screen?
Go ahead.
Yeah, great, thank you. Okay, without going over all of the details again, I'll just do a real quick overview. This is the existing site. It's based on the existing survey from Nathan Corwin. You've got
Blow this up a little, Matt.
do a little bit better. So you've got Rocky Point Terrace on the right-hand side. We'll call that, just for simplicity's sake, we'll call that the east side. The Borthwicks have another property to the north. The Fallard property is to the south, and then the open water is to the west. There's an existing 2.5-story wood frame building out by the road, a couple of decks and patios, comes down to a slope coming down towards the existing pool house, existing shed here, patio, and swimming pool. This is the existing septic right here on that on the water side of the house. The side yard setbacks for zoning consideration, we've got the 20-foot side yard setback here, which is this line right here, and then we've got the 12.5-foot setback, which is that inside red line. Excuse me, as far as wetland setbacks are concerned, we've got a 75-foot setback that kind of snakes its way across the lower third of the property, and then the 100-foot setback, which just set on the inside of that one. And I'll zoom into a closer up expanded version of this as well. But just, this is the drawing that we're submitting to the ZBA for approval. It's revised to show the new proposed building and swimming pool layout. It's also got one correction that actually Mr. Doman, one of the neighbors who was at the last hearing, had pointed out to me, which I'll show you here in just a second. We had the wetlands distance that we had on the survey, and there'll be a zoomed out version of this here in just a second. We had coming from the bulkhead adjacent to the Borthwick property. There's another location here almost to the due south where it's closer. So that's actually the closest location that the existing and the proposed improvements are to the on-site or adjacent wetlands to the site. And this is that zoomed in version. Those setbacks I was talking about for the existing pool, the existing stuff is this in that light gray dash. So this is the existing pool. This here is the existing, let me get the right spot, the existing pool house is this rectangle here. The existing shed is this square right here. The proposed pool, originally, the plan we had provided to you last hearing, the new pool house was going in basically the exact same location and for the most part the same size as the existing pool house. There was a covered area between that pool house and the new shed. The new shed was going to be enlarged so that we could get the pool equipment into it and also use it for some storage. That maintained and actually decreased the side yard setback by a little bit. It went from 4.3 feet, 4.4 feet down to about 4 feet. So we got a little bit closer to the side yard line. The ZBA and the one neighbor had asked if we could change the plan, get things further away from the property line so we weren't asking for as much of a variance there. So this is the new plan that we've come up with. It's a different configuration for the pool house and the shed, but it pulls it further from the property line. It also moves it further up into the property. The pool size stays about the same. There's very minor changes to that. The patio stays about the same. It reduces a little bit, but not enough to really to make a significant difference. Currently, the existing pool is 59.2 feet. That's that dimension right there to the closest wetlands point. That's that point that's due south. The new pool is 6 inches closer to that point. It's 58.7 feet to that closest wetlands point. With that being said, we are decreasing the coverage within that first 75 feet, which is something that we'll bring to the town board. If this gets approved by the ZBA and then approved by the health department, these things will end up being brought to the town board for consideration. The pool is obviously completely outside of this 20-foot side yard setback that the zoning code requires. The pool house here is not. There is 638 square feet of the proposed pool house is going to be within that 20-foot side yard setback. Just for comparison's sake, the existing.
Matt, I'm sorry, just repeat that number you just said.
Yep, it's 638 square feet of non-conforming pool house within the side yard setback.
Yeah.
To compare that to the way things are right now, we've got 324 square feet of the existing pool house, and we've got 55 square feet of the existing shed, as well as the existing pool equipment are all within the setback. So you're at 379 square feet for the buildings, plus the exposed pool equipment. In this new plan, we do increase the amount of building that's within the side yard setback, but we increase the distance from the side yard from 2 feet, which is the closest thing, which is the shed. We move that out to 7.1 feet from the side yard. We also take that exposed pool equipment and put it inside the pool house. So it's still going to be closer than mechanical equipment is allowed to the side yard line, but it will be contained inside the building. So that will help mitigate any types of sound concerns or anything like that. One of the things that was brought up at the last hearing was the flood zone. This line, it's a blue line on the site plan. Everything to the south or the bottom of the page from that blue line that snakes through, That's an AE9 zone. So what an AE9 zone says for the town's requirements are the finished floor, any mechanical equipment, things like that, have to be at an elevation of 11. So everything would have to come up by several feet if we were to move that building further into the property, but then the building itself would have to comply with flood zone requirements. That's one of the reasons why initially and on the new revision, we kept that building outside of that flood zone. One of the other things that's a site constraint on us is the septic system. We're going to be applying to put in a new nitrogen reducing septic system. It's going to have to go right here in the same place as the existing one. Let me back up a page. And the existing well is up here in the corner in the basement of the existing house. So in that front right corner, if you're looking at the road from the house, that's where the existing well is. Suffolk County regulations say they want 150 feet from the well to septic. You're nowhere near that right now. 150 feet would put you on the other side of Rocky Point Terrace. So what we can't do is decrease the distance at all from what's there now. It's not quite grandfathered in, but for lack of a better term, the health department will allow you to do what they consider a best fit scenario, where you're not getting any closer to surface waters, you're not getting any closer to supply wells. And we would be able to replace the existing conventional septic system with a new nitrogen reducing septic system. That kind of locks us in with the septic system into this area. Even if we took that pool and the well, and moved it out closer to Rocky Point Terrace, we would still have to keep that septic there in order to maximize the distance from the supply well. We've got to give potable, safe drinking water precedent over anything else. So the main differences on our two plans. The plan we presented last time, we had a pool house, we had an open space, and we had a shed. The way it was laid out, the total distance was about 56 feet, I believe it was. Total distance from end to end. So I've got it here, hold on. Scroll through real quick. Yeah, we're at 60 feet. We got 2 feet there. So we're at about 55 feet is our total distance from end to end. We had the pool house here with the bathroom, an outdoor shower, changing area outside, an indoor bathroom, and a conditioned area with sliding glass doors, front and back. This was an open area here. And then this was the shed. That was the plan that we had proposed last month. Back to this is the plan that we're proposing now. We've basically turned it into one building. So we've got the same bathroom, same changing area. Rather than having an area with sliding glass doors and then an open area between the two buildings, all underneath the same roof, we've just combined that into one area with sliding doors. The doors will slide back so that they completely retract and the area can be open, wide open, front to back. So those doors would retract into these areas on either side of those, the bathroom on one end and the storage area on the other. So when you're looking at the building, it's going to have basically the same general facade as what we had originally proposed. About the same distance, the areas of building themselves are approximately same. The area where you've got glass or an open area between them is approximately the same. And this area over here, which is that storage area, is about the same as what we first proposed. It's been moved into the property a little bit. It's been moved up away from the wetlands a little bit, and then it's been given this new configuration. Let's see, one of the things that was brought up was whether or not the zoning board should be looking at not only the side yard setbacks, but also the 75-foot wetland setback. And the reason for that is the near shore overlay, which is addressed in the zoning code just as A zone, AA, everything else, it has a specific provision in there which says when things should or should not be allowed to be built in different areas of the regulated wetlands area or anything that's in that near shore zone. And this was something that Mr. Doman had brought up in his letter that he sent to the board yesterday, I believe. I have asked the building department, I've asked Reed Karen to ask you all for an interpretation as to whether or not this is something that you should be weighing in on, or if it's just something that the town board should be weighing in on. And just for the sake of getting it on the record, I'll read you a section of the email that I wrote to him. I've asked that he request from the ZBA regarding the variance from section 133.12 of the Nearshore Overlay District, specifically section F, which is the development of lots and the requirements where individual or multiple lot development should be subject to the following. And this is the key part. It says when natural vegetation exists, a shoreline vegetative buffer of a minimum of 75 feet shall be maintained landward of the boundaries of shorelines, wetlands, creeks, estuaries, tidal freshwater ponds. Then it goes on to say, if buildings and structures shall not be permitted within said shoreline vegetative buffer, that first 75 that's referenced in point 1. And then it lists a couple of exemptions, things like docks, bulkheads, gazebos, those kinds of things. So what I've asked Reed to pass on to you, if he feels it's appropriate, is that I read this to say in this section of code that it requires a minimum 75-foot buffer when, as it says specifically, a natural vegetation exists, as stated in F1. In areas such as this property, where this is the area from the bulkhead, it's not natural vegetation. There's a bulkhead, there's turf grass, there's planted ornamental plantings. So it's not natural vegetation, which is exactly explicitly what the code says needs to be in place in order for you all to be considering this as far as the variance application or the variance decisions. So because there is no natural vegetation, there is natural vegetation on the properties on either side. If you go further down the Knight property, if you go up past the pass over towards Kissing Rock and come around the point, there's areas there with natural vegetation. So in this case, it's not, it's turf grass. So what I've asked then is if the board feels that our interpretation of this is correct and that this is something that should be handled by the town board, when we go to the town board for a wetlands permit, we're going to be doing that anyway. If the board feels that natural vegetation would include artificial turf grass, things along those lines, then consider that as part of your discussions when you're discussing this application, and we can handle it both ways. So
Excuse me, so you're saying that because the grass is planted and the ornamental grasses are planted by humans, they're not natural?
exactly. You've got a natural vegetation and you've got vegetation that someone has put in.
But they're not fake, right? They're
No,
still natural.
That's exactly right, yeah. Yeah, and this doesn't, and maybe I'm reading it more simplistically than that. I don't read this to say that if you've got anything other than paving or artificial man-made materials in that area. When I think of natural vegetation, I'm thinking just that, wetlands, natural vegetation. Once you put in the bulkhead, then you're putting in whatever you're putting into that. It could be, we have people putting gravel, we have people putting sand, we've clover, all sorts of different things. Turf grass in this case, this was done before the wetlands code was around, so there isn't a vegetative buffer in the way that the town board would be looking for it now. If this gets approved by the ZBA and we do go to the town board, we'll end up doing that, but that's another thing for another part of the process.
I would say then at this point, I'd like to see if Reed does ask us for an interpretation.
Mr. Chairman, he sent an email at 4:32 PM.
Okay.
Making that request for an interpretation.
Okay.
So I think what we should do is adjourn when everybody's done, adjourn this one more time, discuss this at a work session, this particular issue, the interpretation, and then bring it back.
I think that's sensible.
Yeah,
Because there are other questions, because like if you look at 133.12F as in Frank, this natural vegetation requirement or trigger is for development of lots. Now, does that mean it's a vacant lot that's being developed? That's when this is a requirement? Because this is already a developed lot. So that's a question right there. It's, somewhat inartfully drafted here. And then also you have 133-12C that talks about the shoreline vegetative buffer. And it says the shoreline vegetative buffer shall be subject to the provisions of chapter 129 which is the wetlands, and activities within that area shall require a permit as specified in chapter 129. So does that provision supersede the zoning code? So that's another question. So these are things that we have to discuss.
Okay. Basically, I think that the mitigation for this, I do, obviously myself and the applicants do recognize that we are asking for variances here. The lot is exceedingly, not exceedingly, but it's very narrow. We've got a lot of site constraints between the wetlands, between the side yard setbacks, the FEMA flood zones, the location of the house, the location of the septic. As noted by Mr. Doman in the last hearing, there's always options. The option could be to just take everything out and just make it go back to natural. There's an option of not doing anything other than just regular maintenance on what's already there. The benefit of approving the plan as we're proposing it is not only does the property owner get the benefit of the newer pool house, but we're putting an automatic cover on the swimming pool. So we're losing all the water that's going to be lost to evaporation will not be being lost to evaporation. We're going to be putting in a new IA septic system. So a conventional septic goes out, a new IA system goes in. There will be, as we go through the town wetlands process, vegetative buffers, salt cell or ozone filtration rather than bromine and chlorine disinfection. Sand filters and will be removed, and cartridge filters will be put in. So there's lots of benefits that are going to occur for the site itself as well as the general area if this is allowed to move forward. If it's not and the status quo stays, then the status quo stays. But I think that short of just saying, just deny it because it's a variance application and variances shouldn't be approved, and looking at it in a little bit, wider lens, that everybody can have a little bit of an improvement based on this project.
Anybody have some questions for Matt?
I just have one quick question, really simple.
Let me stop sharing my screen.
The difference between the square footage of the non-conforming from the first proposed to the second, what's that difference? I know it was moved in, you said in and over a little bit. Do you have a number?
I may not have called that out specifically, but I can get that for you. Let me see if I've got it. I don't have the amount that we reduced the total non.
It just might be helpful for our discussion.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm curious, Matt. I mean, the building seems to be getting very long now. It's 51 feet. It's a long building. It just, I don't know, it seems, how long is the current building? Not include, and how long is to the original shed?
Yeah, I got it in my folder.
The distance from one to the other, from the far end of the shed to the far end of the pool house is 51 feet, but here I'll tell you what they are individually. The pool house is 30.6 feet. and the shed is 7.4 feet.
That's 41 feet. 38
37 and 10.
38 feet.
38 feet, and then, so it's gonna be, let me,
And then maybe with the little gap in between, it's another 4 feet, so it's, I would say about 42 feet.
yeah, it's probably, I think I've got 45 feet, 8 inches long is the distance from one to the other. And then the proposed pool house, excuse me, I have the numbers flipped. The proposed pool house we're putting in is 51 feet
Right.
long. The existing distance from side to side is 45 feet, 8 inches. So we're going up by, 5 to 6 feet in length. The height, the proposed plan is 9.9 feet. That current pool house is just under 12 feet high. I'm not exactly sure what the shed is. Let's see.
So the roof line is actually, the peak is going to be lower
Lower.
than the current.
Yep. Yeah, the shed's significantly lower than the current pool house.
Yeah.
But I don't have an exact dimension on it, but it's probably not much more than I would say probably 8 or 9 feet high, 8 feet high.
And then it also appears to me that, there is space staying out of the blue flood zone line to scooch that building in even still a little bit more, to get it off the property line a little bit more without getting into that spot. I mean, maybe it makes it a little tight to the pool. You showed it 13.5 now.
Yeah, right now we're at 13.5. Really and it kind of germane to your work session discussion you had last week on what's the distance that you really need between a pool house and any structure. 10 feet is really the bare minimum that's recommended. And it's a safety issue, not only as far as people go in between the buildings, but the bigger thing is a splash zone. So you don't want to be getting water on anything that could have a negative impact, any electrical equipment or anything like that. I have a hard time with splashing 10 feet, but that's what the rule of thumb is. So we've got it at 13.5, just to give it a little more comfortable area between the two. You're gonna have chairs out there, you're gonna have things out there. That's just, typical part and parcel with a patio that's between a building and a swimming pool. If the board feels that 13.5 is too much, I can certainly ask the property owners if reducing that by a couple of feet is acceptable. But that's, that's the reason why we looked at that 13.5 dimension.
And what you're calling the proposed pool house is really accessory sleeping, right?
No, it can't be accessory sleeping. No, it's an accessory living structure, meaning it's conditioned space. But the existing building I shouldn't say that it can't be accessory sleeping. The existing building that's there now was explicitly approved with a certificate of occupancy, which is in the ZBA application, that said it was accessory conditioned space with no sleeping allowed. So we're not looking to change the use of this building. We want to keep the use as it is, which is accessory living space. Just as you would have an accessory office or something along those lines. So, could somebody pass out on one of those lounges? Of course they could, but that's not its intended use.
Anybody else have a question? No? No? All right, anybody out in Zoom land want to chime in on this?
Yes.
Mr. Doman has a hand up.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, members of the zoning board. I'm Alexander Doman. I'm the adjacent neighbor at 11 Rocky Point Terrace, two lots over, and partial owner, member of the Rocky Point Association that owns the walking path along the property to the dock, and that also owns the dock. I respectfully object to the revised application on a number of grounds. The pool house, the proposed pool house with the living space, represents a totally new construction with a complete demolition of the existing pool cabana. As such, it is not a reconstruction as described on the application. And the zoning restrictions, I think, should be enforced as the existing structure and pool would be removed entirely, including its foundation. If the new building, which is now going to be on a much expanded footprint, as well as the pool would be on a much expanded footprint, cannot be placed. Well, the building, if it cannot be placed beyond the 100-foot regulated area and the 20-yard setback, I think really should not be built. The current design calls for a non-conforming and much larger, and I would say unnecessary accessory building than the previous proposal. It's much more imposing structure as presently designed. Of course, there is the option to keep or renovate the existing structure without expansion. The proposed new structure is described as a pool house with living space, and this results in a major increase from the described existing smaller pool cabana that's presently there. I object to an increase in the dimensions of a new non-conforming pool house beyond that which is presently existing, and especially the now doubling of the pool house coverage from 324 square feet to 638 square feet. If the ZBA still approves a new pool house within the setbacks, I feel strongly that the structure length should be reduced to what is there presently, which, as you've discussed, is 31 feet, so as to keep the structure then outside the 100-foot mark of the bulkhead. This is at least in keeping with the length of the existing building. The width, I should point out, of the proposed structure, which is now 14 feet, I think should be reduced to what's there, which is 10 feet. As proposed now, it's a much more imposing and unacceptable to have this single large structure than the existing small cabana with a small shed that is very unobtrusive. You've seen the diagrams for comparison. It's much more pleasant to see a separate small shed than to see a combined larger building. This proposed accessory structure, which is now 51 feet, really appears to be like the side of a single-story house from the side, and that's the lot's really small. It's 0.59 acres, and it's just disproportionately large and very unpleasant to look at from the side when you walk along the path, as well as from the dock. I should also point out, that the proposed patio behind the house is objected to still because it's unnecessary as it is still within the side yard setback of 12.5 feet. And also a good portion of that patio, 44 square feet, is within the 75-foot vegetative buffer. I particularly object to the expansion of the length of the pool by 21 3/4 feet beyond what the present pool is, which is 38 feet. And this extra length still puts the pool well within the vegetative buffer, as has been discussed. As I mentioned to Matt, and he's explained, these new plans, are erroneous in the sense that the improvement from the intrusion in the vegetative buffer is not the 10 feet as described, but is really a minimal length. I thought maybe 2.5 feet. I think Matt's saying is less than a foot from what was the previous design. So there's really no improvement with the pool of that dimension. If the new pool even in its new proposed location and orientation, is no longer than the existing pool, it would only be very slightly within the prohibited 75-foot vegetative buffer. I think far better than the proposed orientation of the pool would be to rotate the pool 90 degrees to the shoreline so that it would be effectively parallel to the shoreline and parallel to the back water side of the house. And this can be done in such a way that it is not encroaching on the 75-foot vegetative buffer and can even be kept 20 feet from the proposed new septic leaching system by placing one end of the pool about 25 feet from the opposite side yard setback. You know, the owners may not find it attractive, but by most people's estimation, that's an attractive location for a pool in front of the house. While there would not be space for a conforming pool house, in my view, such a structure with a pool in that location would be rendered totally superfluous and not needed with this improved location. It would be closer to the house, and such this overall configuration would be more appropriate in keeping with a lot that's only 0.59 acres, as well as would be a much better respect of the building ordinances. I'd like to also point out that I disagree on the application sheet that says that the need for a variance is not self-created. I think the need for a variance is self-created. The improvements in question, namely the pool and the small cabana, would be demolished and removed, and would no longer be a constraint on the on new construction, as the existing footprints would not even be used in the proposed plans. As described, the new pool with dimensions similar to the existing pool can be placed in another orientation within the zoning compliant area. The lot dimension thus does not preclude putting the pool in a zoning compliant area. I'd also like to just point out that there was an earlier application before the ZBA in 2015, I believe, in which to merge this lot with the owner's adjacent lot. With that application was withdrawn, but it would have allowed the owner to easily place the pool and accessory pool, as well as a pool shed in a zoning compliant area in a merged lot. And I mentioned this only to point out that to that extent, this is another reason why the request for a variance is self-created. I would like to point out that there was the ZBA ruled on another matter of this very same property. It was appeal number 09-15 on the owner's main house, in which the ZBA resolved that their house may not be expanded. This was a non-conforming house. So the ZBA ruled that the house may not be expanded. And the ZBA also ruled, quote, there shall not be any increase in height or footprint of the house unless the entire building is moved to a conforming location, close quote. This resolution, which was dated March 23, 2016, means, in my opinion, that I would respectfully request that the ZBA continue to rely on its prior resolution from this 2016 hearing to resolve the same way, i.e. not to increase, that there should be no increase in the footprint of the pool, pool shed, or pool house. I think to resolve otherwise, honestly, would be unreasonable and without consideration. I'd also like to point out a different ruling of the ZBA on the same owner's contiguous property at 71C Nostrand. That was an appeal 02-218, and there was a resolution on April 25, 2018, that the owner's other house could be reconstructed on its non-conforming location only if the existing foundation could be maintained. So the ZBA resolved then that, quote, if the existing foundation must be replaced the house will be moved to a conforming location, close quote. The same style resolution, I think, should therefore apply to the present application in which the foundation would be removed. I think the pool therefore should be moved to its available conforming location. And failing that, the pool and the associated structures must not be expanded upon. And the last thing I would just mention is a letter, rather the letter of disapproval from Reed Karen. He stated his opinion in that letter in which he stated that a variance is required by both the ZBA and the town board for work within the 75-foot near-shore vegetative buffer. I'm just going to quote a sentence from the last page of his letter. It says, quote, "Since the proposed pool house, pool, and appurtenant patio are in part within the 75-foot near-shore vegetative buffer, a ZBA variance for each of these items, each of these three items will be required," close quote. So as such, Reed has stated his opinion that the ZBA has jurisdiction and a requirement to address a variance for the requested work in violation that would otherwise be in violation of zoning ordinance 133-12. So, thank you for letting me express my thoughts, and I'm helpful, open to any questions you might have.
Anybody have any questions, Mr. Dolman? No? Thank you, Mr. Dolman.
Thank you.
Concerning the last bit and then that Reed actually sent us an email today asking for an interpretation of that. I want to leave this open until we can discuss that other matter. Because historically, we have accepted that the town board's wetlands review supersedes our function on this. And if you do look, I'm not going to get into it a lot here, but just 133.12C, Stephen read that to us. And give me just a second here, sorry.
I think I have it.
I got it too. Okay, right. So, and it says that it's going to require a permit as specified in chapter 129, and that's the wetlands permit thing. And so I think it's just good for us to hash this out and have a discussion on it and come up with some sort of a judgment on whether or not how we're going to move forward on things like this.
And just for the record, the zoning board is the ultimate arbiter on the meaning of the zoning code, not the building inspector. That's why the building inspector has asked for your opinion on it.
Okay.
And interpretation.
Okay. So for now, I'd like to leave this hearing open. I guess we can come back to it in February. Yeah, this is January, right? So we can come back to February. I think our next hearing is February 15th, is it?
Yeah, it's earlier in the month.
Yeah, because of school vacation.
It's February 15th, and the work session we have is on the 8th. So I would like to discuss the vegetative buffer versus wetlands on the 8th of February. So please, I'd ask all of you to do a little bit of homework and read up on the code. And does anybody else want to weigh in on this hearing while we're still going here tonight? Anybody out in Zoom land? No? Anybody here? Sir,
No,
okay.
I'm just here as an observer. I'm
Okay.
Jeff Feingold. I'm an architect. I'm new to the island, and so I find.
Okay. Thrilling.
Welcome.
All right, so I'm going to ask that we leave it open. We don't have to take a motion on that, right?
Pam has her hand up.
Okay. Pam Demarest, you wanted to weigh in? You have a question?
She
Yeah, no,
waved it.
I think that Mr. Dolman really covered a lot of the issues on this building that I had noticed myself. I'm actually weighing in to say I apologize for that outburst, but honestly, when you do shuffle the papers, the microphones pick up so much noise we can't hear on the Zoom call. So I really want to just give you my apology for that little outburst earlier. I didn't realize I wasn't muted.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Do we have to have a motion to keep it open?
Motion to adjourn.
A motion to adjourn, not to keep it open. Okay,
Adjourn's keeping it up.
okay. I'd like to, can I have a motion to adjourn this hearing?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anything else? Do we have any other business to take care of tonight? No, may I have a motion to close the hearing, the meeting, excuse me?
Yeah. Yes, I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
8:20.